Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I am recording this right after my Nexus Night for the week. Just going to go over my deck list and kind of thoughts about the deck, and we'll see where it goes from there. So to start off, I was playing the Jinx that I got at the sealed event in the Houston regional this week. I got the over number, so I felt like I should build the deck at least once and try it at least once. And I was playing it with the red Jinx here, just like from the starter deck. I saw that the top placing list was running the purple one from Houston, but I don't have one, so I stuck with this for now. Let's, I guess, hop into the rest of the deck. First up, we were running two seals. I just have the two. They came up a couple times, but I think that if I were adjusting around the list, I would either need to go up to the third one or go down to 0, depending on where the list ended up. Not a bad card for sure, especially in Jinx, because you can always get it out of your hand. But the floor is also pretty low on these ones. If you are top decking these late and not needing it, it's not that great. I only had one copy of Stack Deck, so that is the only one that I'm running, which I know that this is a 3-of whenever you're in purple, so I know this is a weakness of the list. Next up, we had two Cleave. This one I think was fine at 2-of. I don't know if I needed to go up a third, but it also could depend a lot on my particular list and how you balance it out. But 2 felt fine for this list. I was running 1 Hextech Ray. It works in a lot of ways similar to Cleave, because you'll end up using it on your turn pretty frequently. It just has a power cost and a little bit more flexibility to go with it. I was kind of happy with this one, but I could definitely see a world in which I'd want more of them. Also, though, for that same slot, though, I was running 2 of Gusts. I don't know if you would want too much more than this, so you can probably take these 4 and adjust the ratios as you see fit, or at least that was my impression on the list. Next, getting into my 2-cost guys, I was running 3 of the Chemtech Enforcers, 3 of Vi, 3 of Traveling Merchant, and 2 of the Pouty Poro. The numbers felt pretty reasonable on my 2-drops here. I felt like they were coming out pretty hard and fast. I think my bigger problem was less on having an incorrect number of these, and more that I needed some more impactful top end, which we'll get into when we get into the more expensive cards. The only card on here that I would consider maybe not running the 3 of would be Vi. The 3 here hurts because of the power cost, and you usually don't need too many if you're going for the combo. They're solid to play out early, but a lot less effective if you are not going for the full combo with these ones. So I would definitely consider going down to 2 on these. I happen to be pretty in on the combo, so 3 felt right. With that, I'm only running 2 Ride the Winds. I would consider going up to 3 to make the combo more consistent. The problem being that Jinx, really, it's tough to hold on to these cards for very long, so you do end up having to use them, and they're way less effective on your little guys than they are on the Vi's and your bigger guys. So you really got to be careful about your ratios here. I think 2 worked out okay for me. I usually found 1 in the game. The unfortunate part is, due to the way I was playing it, I oftentimes would have to either use it or lose it, kind of thing like that. And that was a little unfortunate for the spot where the deck is. So I think there's some fine tuning that needs to be done. Next, I was running 3 Fight or Flights. These are great. Definitely would want to continue running 3 of these. One of the more efficient ways of dealing with the big stuff, which is really important, trying to keep your opponent from stabilizing, because you will get out to a very aggressive early start and get out to an early lead in most matchups, and you need some number of these to kind of cross the finish line. Again, with like with the Ride the Wind, though, there was definitely a lot of times where, because I was trying to play into the Jinx ability, I got stuck in a use it or lose it situation, which definitely reduced the effectiveness of the card when I had to just kind of fire it off, otherwise lose it. Still a very good card in Jinx, and definitely one that you want to run, but just something to keep in mind that you can't hold on to them as much as you'd want. Here's a card I would like to go up on, the Sun Disk. So here's a card I'd like to go up on, the Sun Disk. I only opened one in all of my products so far, so I'm on just the one, but I definitely would like to see probably a second one. Especially once I adjust my runes ratio, which I'll go over later. I do think that this card would be very solid in letting you kind of have just a little bit more reach with some of your guys, especially backed up with a fight or flight, or some other form of removal. The Sun Disk would be a real effective way at closing a game. Next up, we have the 3 of Scrap Heap. This one is way better here than it is in a lot of decks, and other decks are already running this one. If you pull up Zon Warrens in your best of 1 or something like that, or you just discard it with a Jinx or a Hextech Enforcer, it works out quite nicely. Next card I was running was the other 2 copies of my Demolitionists. I could definitely see cutting one of these. The When You Play Me discard 2 did kind of put me in those spots where I wasn't able to hold on to my key cards a little bit. I am looking forward to when this deck gets more kind of average card quality, so that you don't mind throwing away stuff and you're not kind of reliant on a combo to kind of close out the game. But until then, I would definitely consider cutting one of these for a body that doesn't have that kind of downside to it. Next up, the Flame Chompers. This really helps mitigate the downside of all of your discard cards. That said, my runes ratio was off this week. I didn't adjust it very much, and I really should have. And there were a lot of times where I had to discard this and then not play it out, which really hurt. Because you had everything go right except for my runes. But still a very strong card when I got it to work. Then next card, and this is definitely a full 3 of, is the Noxus Hopefuls. These guys are great. Really important being able to get out this 4 Might Guy on the cheap, and worked out great. I don't think there was ever a time when he got stuck in hand. I was always able to trigger Legion. And it felt great. I was running 1 Super Mega Death Rocket. I like the idea of this card a whole lot, so I wanted to run the 1 copy just to see how it played out. I was able to use it once, and I think I maybe drew it 1 other time than that. So for the draw it to it being useful ratio of 50%, that's still pretty good. It's nice that it can get rid of kind of units that the Void Seeker does not. So it means that you can kind of get there against things that people don't expect to necessarily die. And so I would definitely be interested in keeping the 1 in, especially if I were switching over to the purple Jinx, which I think would be a pretty nice way to play it. And then final card in the main deck was the Brazen Buccaneers. These guys were solid. I do think that they felt a little underwhelming for what went into them, but oftentimes they were what I needed to enable a discard combo, either with Scrap Heap or with the Flame Chompers. And I think if I had had my rune ratio right, then things would have gone pretty reasonable, keeping him at 2 of. Moving on to the runes, and this is definitely the main reason why the deck didn't feel like it was working for me tonight. I left sleeved the exact ratio from the original, and I made way too many changes to do this. Even with the 2 seals, I was finding that I was running out of reds, so I would probably do at least 2 more reds to balance this out. There were times where I had pretty much all chaos runes on like 5 runes and no fury runes, and it just didn't work out. So I'm not going to hold it against the deck too much, because I know that this was my fault for not just taking the time to go find a couple more red runes out of my bulk. But definitely I learned the value of having the right ratios. All of the other decks that I've played have been close enough to 6/6 to where I didn't really feel it very much running 6/6. But this one definitely I felt it hard. So I'd need to run probably at least 8/4. And depending on the specific list that I run, it could be even more, especially if I'm doing more Sun Disk stuff, because it also has the recycle a rune cost on it. But overall, the deck felt like it was pretty functional. I think if my runes hadn't betrayed me, this deck would have felt pretty reasonable where it's at. I am interested in kind of adjusting and maybe testing out the purple Chosen Champion, recognizing that that makes the deck quite a bit slower, but a lot more resilient, and then you have a lot more of stuff to do. So definitely something I want to test with. And I'm not going to toss the deck aside, but I know that this deck isn't where I want it to be yet. So back to the drawing board. As far as the location or the battlefields that I ran, I was running Reaver's Row. I really like this one. I don't know why I don't see more decks run it. It feels like just a really strong thing. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably because of Kaisa, that just running a guy back to base isn't enough to survive a Kaisa. But I do feel like that's a quite strong when you're not facing Kaisas. Today I faced 3 Teemos and a Ahri. Lost to all 3 Teemos, usually by them getting out their big body and then me getting stuck on not having enough ways to remove it. But this Reaver's Row felt really good. I was running Tarragon's Peak. It didn't come up anytime in my games tonight. We were just doing best of 1, so I didn't get to see this one. But I do think that this one would help potentially with some of the cards in the deck. One of the things that was tough sometimes is you would be on low cards, but not low enough to trigger your ability. So having extra runes to be able to throw out another spell would have been useful in a couple spots tonight. So I'm not necessarily going to cut this one. I guess Arena's Greatest would be the one to replace here. And then finally, Zon Warren's. This one is definitely staying in for Jinx. You just have so much extra use for the discard between the Flame Chompers and the Scrap Heaps. It's just a great thing to help fuel Vi as well. So Zon Warren's definitely gets kept. Reaver's Row I really like for the deck, but I can understand why people don't run it. And then Tarragon Peak is the one that I would probably want to switch out for an Arena's Greatest when I get the chance. I just have to go dig through my bulk to find it. So overall, I felt like the list was, I let it down by not upping or adjusting the rune ratio. And then I think that there is a little bit of adjustment that still needs to be done to the ratios. Maybe trying something a little bit more, what's it called? A little more mid-rangey, not quite as low to the ground. Probably cutting some number of 2s, maybe a copy of Vi and maybe a Poro or something like that. Cutting some number of them to get a little bit more mid-range stuff and maybe trying out the Purple Jinx. But that's kind of how my tournament went this week. And next week, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to try. I'm going to definitely look and see if I can't pick up something maybe for this to try this list again next week, or I'm also just exploring what I have in my collection and what other decks are viable with the cards I have, to see where we end up from there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little deck check, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.